Wow. Is anybody else nervous? Is it just me? Right. I've actually got some glasses that actually have both arms this time. So it's a good start. Helps if I start at the beginning of the preach and not the end. Right. Oh, I can't even see the... I'm looking for the video and we haven't got one. Right, there we go. Right. So, sheep, goats, and final judgment. That's my parable today. I'm going to be talking on Matthew 25. But I didn't really like that title because it was quite boring. So I thought I'd get the main point of what I got out of this message and stick it up straight away. And then we can finish, right? So, to love people is to love God. So we're done, right? We can go. So if you don't remember anything else today, just remember that, to love people is to love God. See, I've been really, really challenged by this passage, and the way I've been challenged really is because I'm the kind of person who likes being in the street, in pubs, in clubs, meeting people, telling people about God. I'm more comfortable out there than I am in here. I hate getting up in front of people. But God's really challenged me to say, there's people in here who need God just as much as the people out there. So, I'm going to read from Matthew 25, 31 to 46. So, when the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, he will sit on his glorious throne before him, and will be gathered all the nations, and he will separate people one from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he will place the sheep on the right and the goats on the left. And the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me." The righteous will answer him, saying, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? And when did we see you a stranger or welcome you, or naked and clothe you? And when did we see you sick or in prison or visit you?" And the king will answer them, "Truly I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of these my brothers, you did it to me." And then he will say to those on his left, "Depart from me, you are cursed, into eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me no food. I was thirsty, and you gave me no drink. I was a stranger, you did not welcome me, naked, and you did not clothe me, sick and in prison, and you did not visit me." Then they will also answer, saying, "Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or naked or sick or in prison and did not minister to you?" Then he will answer them, saying, "Truly I say to you, as you did not do it to one of these, least of these, you did not do it to me." And these will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous will go into eternal life. All right, see if this works. Nope. Next. So, I'm going to go into a little bit of context of what that's actually talking about, just so we actually know what's going on. So, we have to look back at the beginning of chapter 24 to start off, really, and to see what's happening. So, Jesus and his disciples have just left the temple in Jerusalem, and the disciples are trying to get Jesus' attention. And they're like, "Oh, we want to show you how amazing this building is, God. Jesus, have you seen how great this building is?" And the disciples are quite fascinated by the temple and the complete awe of it. And it's probably a lovely evening as well. And they're like, the sun's just going down, and so the temple will be looking amazing. See, the temple was covered with gold plates. And in the sun, it shone so bright that it'd be blinding. And where there was no gold, there was blocks of marble, so pure and white that from a distance, strangers actually thought it was snow. But you can imagine how much that would be standing out and how beautiful it was. And to top it off, this was the place that God lived. How cool is just that? So if any of you are like me, I'm quite fascinated by old buildings and the detail that goes into them. And I remember walking around London not too recently and just being in awe of some of the buildings and the craftsmanship and the detail that's gone into them buildings. And I remember the first time seeing the Buckingham Palace and the Houses of Parliament and thinking, wow, how grand they look. And I was totally gobsmacked. Just how grand it was and how beautiful it was and the time and the detail that's gone into that. So that's where the disciples are at right now. They're like, wow. But then Jesus basically tells them, he goes, that they shouldn't be so impressed with the grand buildings, but to be focused on loving well. Because that's what he's given them. I mean, there's nothing wrong with liking buildings or liking things, but the buildings won't be there forever. But loving well, it will always be there in people's hearts and no matter where you go. So this is where they're at right now when then Jesus then speaks to his disciples. So the big question is for today is, are you a sheep or a goat? When Jesus returns in his glory, will you be on the left or will you be on the right? Or simply put, are you in or you're out? There's no middle ground. You know that the Bible says to not be lukewarm, to be hot or cold. Middle ground just does not work. But what really blows my mind at the beginning of this passage is and you guys need to really picture this, is this like, firstly, Jesus is coming down in all his glory. This isn't the baby Jesus. This isn't the preaching Jesus. This isn't even the resurrection Jesus. This is the revelation Jesus. He's coming down in all of his glory, sat on his throne, surrounded by angels. And it's not just one or two angels either, is it? Revelation 5 puts it, there are 10,000 times 10,000. That's nuts. 10,000 times 10,000. That's 100 million angels. And then Jesus gathers all these people and then separates them. So he's like, okay, Bob, off to the right. Sorry, Betty, off to the left. Can you imagine what that moment would feel like? What would you feel like? I think for myself, personally, I think I'll be on my hands and knees watching him come down. I don't think I'd be stood. Jesus in all his glory with them hundreds of millions of angels. And then for him to say to me, right, Dave, hopefully, go to the right. I'll be like, don't ever do, don't change your mind, don't change your mind. You know what I mean? I'd be like freaked out. What an intense scene that is. God in his glory, gathering people and then separating them. And then, to top it off, verse 34 says, then the king will say to those on his right, come, you are blessed by my Father. Inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. Right, so let's get this right. God is on the throne. He's got his millions of angels, 100 million to be exact, and he's separating people. And then he comes to you and says, come take your inheritance. You specifically. Lisa, come and take your inheritance. No, Tracy, come and take your inheritance. Linda, come and take your inheritance. He's saying it personally. He's saying it to you. What would that feel like? For the Son of God to say that to you face to face. So I've got 3 points that I've got. So the first one. So how do we work out whether we are sheep and goats? Sheep don't earn their faith. In Ephesians, the Apostle Paul is pretty clear that salvation comes to us from God's grace, which we receive through faith. That's trusting Him. We have to trust Him. For it is by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not from yourself. It is a gift from God, a gift of God. So if we look back at this parable, when Jesus says, "You fed me, you clothed me, you gave me drink," the reward for doing this isn't salvation. This is just what's expected from us as Christians, to love your neighbor as yourself. This is how we become sheep. And when it talks about being poor, it doesn't necessarily mean worldly poor. He's also talking about spiritually poor, people who haven't got a clue who Jesus is. But don't get me wrong, the works that we do matter to God, but we must never think of them as a means to earn our way to God. Because He freely gives us grace, mercy, love, salvation, and a new life. See, good works come as a response to the activity of grace in our lives. Yet we must always remember that our salvation does not come by our works. This means, among other things, that you don't have to get it right to be in a relationship with God. You don't have to be perfect. Mark was just saying before, we don't have to be perfect. Or even close. You don't even have to have an unperfect, unfaltering faith. You don't even have to have a perfect theology. I mean, if that's even possible for us humans, Rather, you need to receive God's grace in faith, to trust Him and allow Him to transform your life. See, for me, when my kids were being born, obviously that was Kirsty going through that and not me, but I was in that room at that time, and I won't go into detail because you don't need it, but what an experience that is. I had to completely not just trust Kirsty, but trust the midwife and the doctors who I have never met before to deliver my kids. I had complete and utter trust, and then suddenly, out pops this baby, right? It's that easy. Out pops this baby, and then your life completely changes. Your life does not matter anymore. All you want to do is just love that child. And that's the same for God. He wants us to surrender and give our lives to Him so that He gives us His brand new life. So all we do is just say, "Lord, I want more of you." Point number 2. Sheep let their faith live. For us as sheep, we need to act out and let our faith live. We need not just, we need to look, basically, at the parable of the talents first, briefly. And so today, you've got a special 2-for-1 offer. You've got 2 parables for the price of 1. So, basically, the parable of the talents, you've got this master, and he decides that he's going to go on his holidays, right? So he leaves 3 of his servants in charge, and he gives them some cash just to invest into some things. Doesn't say what it is, but he invests. So he goes on his jolly holidays, and then the two of the guys, one's been given 5 talents, the other one's been given 2 talents, and the other one's been given 1 talent. But the first 2, they double it straight away. And then the third guy is too afraid to actually do anything with it that he buries it in the ground. So then the master decides, he's had enough of his jolly holidays, and he's come back. And he's absolutely stoked, right, with the 2 guys that have doubled the money. And he says to them that they're allowed to enter the joy of the master. That means there's a party at his house and they're invited. But then there's the third guy's turn to show up to the master and show him what he did with the money. And he gives it to him, and the master's like, "What have you done? I could have took this on holiday with me and come back and had the same amount of money." He said, I've given you that money to do something with, and you've not done nothing. So he says, like, he's so disappointed, he just tells him to go away, that you can't be trusted. See, which one are you? Are you investing in the people around you? I mean, it's pretty obvious that we need to be doing stuff. We can't just turn up on a Sunday and get fat, spiritually that is. We need to invest in the people around us. The programs provided, the life groups, the prayer meetings, the week of prayer, to live together, spurring each other on. To go and talk to that person on the other side of the room that you see every single week but you've never spoke to. To be a community. Tina was saying before, to be a community, to be family, because that's what we are. You see why I've been challenged by this? I mean, I'm preaching to myself here as well, so I'm not amazing, you know. But what if we took this seriously, this passage? What if we took it literally? See, how can we be fishers of men if we don't have any working nets? In other words, we need to prepare our nets before we go and get the fish. See, fishermen spent most of the time fixing and preparing their nets than actually fishing. They need to know that they've got the right equipment, that they've got the right mentality as a team to work together. And it was a dangerous job because the Jews absolutely hated being on water. So they need to know everyone was doing what they were doing, and they needed to trust each other. And just like the story of the talents, let's invest ourselves into this church, into the people, your family. This is your church and your family. Let's love one another, pray for one another, help one another. See, in this passage of the sheep and goats, Jesus says, you fed me, you clothed me, you gave me drink. Isn't that what we're supposed to do to each other here? I mean, I've been blessed so much just being here. You know, I've got some new glasses because of some kind people in this church. You know, I've got a car because I was blessed by some kind people in this church. That's showing family, that's showing love. But when Jesus says, you fed me, you clothed me, he said me. He said me. Jesus said me. So technically, right, you're all Jesus in disguise. So helping each other in this place is also helping Jesus. And number 3, sheeps aren't goats. Who knows that sheep are not goats? Yeah, it's pretty simple, isn't it? But you know, the other week I went to the Windmill Farm for my daughter's 4th birthday, and we saw like sheep, goats, pigs, donkeys, and you get the drift. It's a farm. But from a distance, the sheep actually look like goats, and the goats actually look like sheep. And you think, it made me really think. I was like, what if people in this church are trying to be sheep, but they're actually goats? I mean, let me explain some differences between sheep and goats. I've done my research. Sheeps can't really live on their own. Sheeps. Don't trust Wikipedia. Sheep, should I say. I knew I'd do it. I've been trying all week not to say sheeps. Sheep can't really live on their own. They need a shepherd, and they know how much they need him. And that's why sheep always follow the shepherd around. But goats are stubborn, and they do their own things. And do you know what? They'll eat anything, eat them rubbish, and make themselves ill. And they don't know how much they're needed by the shepherd. They don't know how much they need to be looked after. Are you a goat? Obviously, it depends on how you woke up in the morning, but are you a goat? I get that sometimes, sometimes you just come, you want to come to church and you just want to be. You don't want to get involved. You just want to get your fill, go home and not talk to anybody. Because it's probably been a bad week or a bad day and you don't want to talk to anyone, never let alone talk about how great Jesus is when your week's been absolute rubbish. But you do have a sense that you want to just come to church and just be in the presence of God. I've been like that. We're only human after all, you know what I mean? But the issue is, if you're coming to church every week and that's happening, then there's an issue. And that's where this family of God, us, we're supposed to be that shoulder to cry on, to be that ear to listen to people's issues, to be that solution. God will provide all our needs, but we're here to love each other. 1 Peter 2:17 says, show proper respect to everyone, love the family of believers, fear God, and honor the King. Nobody here is an inconvenience. Everyone has issues. But also everyone has a gift, the same gift. And that gift is to love like Jesus. To be able to live and walk like Jesus did. Now that's a proper gift. Let's not just blend in on a Sunday. I mean, we have the opportunities to change this town, but it starts with you guys. It's not the pastors. It's you guys. So we need to get involved. Do you know, if every single person, we ask for volunteers all the time in this church, but if we all volunteered to help out in the kids' church, and we've got loads of kids' work going on Sunday, but if we only had to do one a year, if we all volunteered, one session a year, that's nothing. I mean, isn't that worth it? I mean, the kids are Jesus too. You know what I mean? Helping them is helping Jesus. See, this Christian life isn't simply saying a prayer and then that's it. It's through living out our inside faith. Dan, can you tinkle, tinkle? I'm gonna crash land now. But to love people is to love God. And that's the main point that I got out of this today, and I hope that's what you've got out of this. But just want to share something. Just thinking, what if, Gary, and I'm not pathetic in any way, so don't what if you lost your job today? You got a text message and you lost your job. And you couldn't afford to pay your bills, and then you couldn't pay your rent, and you had no food, and your family was struggling. We could pray to God and we can ask Jesus to provide, but we have to use our actions. So we get all of us. Hey, glory! Right, here we go. Woo! Getting carried away with myself now. But what if we all got around Gary? Someone prayed for Gary and Rose, not just Gary, but it's the family. But then someone said, oh yeah, I'm going to give you a food for a week. I'm going to pay your bills this week. There's your rent paid for the week. Isn't that what loving the family is? Isn't that what family is supposed to do? Go into my mum and dad and go, do you know what, Dad, I need some money. And they'll give it me. That's family. But we need to have that, that openness, that vulnerability of ourselves as well, to be able to talk to people about our issues and not think that we're burdening people. I just want to leave you with these couple of questions. First question is, how are you loving the family? we are family? How are you loving the people around you? And then the second one, how can you connect better to give what you get and get what you need? Remember, when the time comes when Jesus is in front of you in all of his glory, are you sure today that you will be a sheep and not a goat? Or are you missing out? I'm going to give an opportunity just to close our eyes and just to pray. And if you've never experienced God's love, if you've never experienced who Jesus is personally, then I'm going to give you an opportunity to just to put your hand up. Because you've got a family around you. Once you're a new creation, you've adopted a new family. This is your new family. So if you want to say yes to Jesus today, I just want to ask if you can raise your hand while everyone's hands are closed, and just give you that opportunity just to say yes, Jesus. I want you in my life. I want you to be a part of my life. I'm sick and tired of being comfortable. Lord Jesus, we want to thank you so much that we just get to come before you in your presence, not just on Sundays, but every single day. To live like you live, to love like you love, to just be like you, to show you through us, through our actions, through our love, through our kindness. And we don't even have to try, and we don't even have to be perfect. Lord, we just ask you that you'll just help us to love each other. Help us to feel comfortable talking to each other. Help us to feel that we can trust each other. And then our nets will just be supernaturally prepared so we can go out there. What if we came together as a family for Sunfest and we went out there and we showed that we were the best church for this town? And everybody was asking, what is different about your church than everybody else's church? And that's because we have Jesus inside of us and we live it out. We don't just come to church on a Sunday and just get fat. We thank you, Jesus, for using us. Amen.